And joining us now is Mark Hart. He's an author, he's a speaker, also known as the Bible Geek, and his latest book is Zealous. And we're so happy to have you with us, Mark.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Maybe if we could get right into the book, tell us what made you decide to co-author a book, and it's based on the spiritual life, based on St. Paul's guidance.
Correct. You know, my friend Chris, who's now Father Cadgen Cuddy, when we wrote the book, he was Chris. When we sat down to write the book, you know, when you talk to a Catholic and you say Peter and Paul, you know, we're going to lean into Peter most of the time. You know, he's our first pope, he's the pontiff, we're comfortable with Peter. But when you talk to non-Catholic Christians, many Protestants, if you say Peter and Paul, most of the time they lean more towards Paul. You know, that's where a lot of their sort of theology comes from, the theology of grace, some call it. And we said, you know, Paul can be very intimidating if you're not used to reading Paul. I mean, even Peter himself says Paul's very smart. He's kind of hard to understand, Peter says in his letter. And we said, you know, if people can just understand, if Catholics can just understand a few key concepts about Paul, about who he was, about what he was trying to achieve, about his theology, if you can understand these 3 or 4 things, these key things, well, then all of a sudden, all of his writings come to life. Now all of a sudden, the second reading at Mass really makes sense. Now all of a sudden, you see why he's so perturbed over here, but he's so joyful over here. And if we can understand Paul, not only does half the New Testament come to life, not only does that second reading come to life, but now we have common ground. Now we can really talk and converse and pray with our Protestant brothers and sisters and find that common ground to build on, because we actually have more in common than we do apart.
Yeah, there's a lot of material to work with there. We're going to continue talk about the book in just a moment, but I also wanted to talk about your busy schedule too. You also, people know you as a Bible geek too, but what's been going on with you recently?
Oh my goodness. Well, first and foremost, I'm a husband and a father, so that'll tell you anything. I have one neuron firing about 9:30 at night. But no, recently I just finished up a new study that's going to be coming out with Ascension Press next year. It's a Bible study for teenagers on the Mass. It's a 4-part video study on the Mass, which I'm very excited about. In the middle of 2 new book projects right now, one through Life Team and one through another publisher. And right now, really just trying to find the way to just be present to God every day in my life. You know, I know for a lot of people watching, when you're busy with kids, with grandkids, with jobs, with ministry, it's very easy for our faith to become sort of reactive. And that was one of the things I loved about writing Zealous and about this book, was because Paul had found a way to always be present to God, even in the midst of trials and suffering and travel. Like, he was always present to God. And even in writing the book, it really reminded me of the importance of that daily discipline of waking up every morning and giving God a morning offering, waking up every morning and spending time with God, hitting the pillow every night, doing that examination of conscience to know that where am I in relationship to God? Because if I don't know that, then I can't really be good for anybody.
Yeah, and as you're saying, St. Paul's very smart, and he's challenging too, and he calls us to perfection, asking us to be blameless and innocent, without blemish, when we return to the Lord. And I was wondering too, when people read that, do they get a little nervous? They figure it's maybe too impossible to even attempt that. What do you find?
I sure get nervous, I'll tell you. You know, when Jesus says, "Be perfect as I am perfect," I say, "Can you set the bar a little lower?" No. You know why I like St. Paul so much is because anybody who's read his epistles, he's a really fiery guy. You know, he's really holy. Obviously, he's a saint, but he really struggles in his humanity too. He struggles with how to live out the daily Christian life with people who aren't so Christian and with people who really push your buttons. You know, how do you live as a Christian in gridlock traffic? You know, how do you live as a Christian when the crushing stress of bills come? How do you live as a Christian when you're dealing with your own physical health and stresses? And Paul gives practical wisdom for all of those things in his writings. And for me, Paul is the quintessential Christian, because he's constantly aware of who God is, but of who he's not. And I think that's really the key to living the Catholic life. That's why we have the sacrament of reconciliation. That's why we have Mass. That's why we have the church, is to constantly remind us of who God is and that God is present and he's available to us, especially in the sacraments, but also who we're not because of sin, but who we're designed to be because of grace.
Yeah, your writing and speaking ministry appeals to a wide range of ages and circumstances. What are some of the key elements in your work, do you think?
You know, I'm a big fan of Fulton Sheen. I've always loved Fulton Sheen, St. John the 23rd, you know, because they understood that humor serves a purpose. And it's easy to appeal to someone's intellect. Anybody can appeal to someone's intellect, or you can appeal to the senses. But humor, I believe, laughter is the shortest distance between two souls. And if you can get someone laughing, if you can get someone laughing, you get them listening. So humor is, in my opinion, is actually the highest form of philosophy, because if philosophy is a commentary on thought, well, humor is a commentary on that commentary. It's a commentary on how we think. So oftentimes I try to inject humor into my writing or into presentations, not just for the sake of being silly, that sort of thing, but to realize that if you get a soul laughing, that tills the soil of the heart a lot faster than any other weapon.
That's great. And a lot of people might recognize you from Beyond Words, which we run here on Catholic TV too. But if people want to find out more about the book, about Zealous, where can they get a copy?
They can get Zealous at any Catholic bookstore. You can go on Amazon. You can head to Servant Books, the good people at Franciscan Media. They put it out. Or you can just go to BibleGeek.com. You can find me there, and I can direct you there myself.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Mark, for being with us today.
Really appreciate the time. God bless you all.